have known, well, all but one for a very long time. Barbara Williams, the end. I was her assistant director on Bright Star. We met in 2005 when we were both in the Laramie Project and immediately hit it off and been friends ever since. Barbara began her teaching career, her theater directing career, teaching high school drama and technical theater classes in Newark, California, where she is affectionately known and still is as Drama Mama. After retiring in 2004 from 39 years of teaching, she moved to the El Granada, continues to direct and be in all aspects, including technical, in so many plays, too long to go into. She also volunteers at the wine bar and ushering and all the other stuff that goes with it. She likes also to be backstage in the shadows, where many of you don't get to go. However, talk about that. Karen Byrnes did The Girl on the Train. Karen, I met not in the theater, but at Concord d'Elegance a long time ago. And I was privileged to star in one of her own plays as a Russian Baba. Truly. She's a native San Franciscan, earned her BA in Theater Arts from Notre Dame in Belmont, has directed more than 100 shows in the last 40 years, taught drama at a variety of schools, conservatories, including San Carlos Charter Learning Center, Portola Valley Theater, Hillbarn, Ralston, on and on and on. She's also a talented freelance photographer and Baba to 4 grandchildren. Nancy Martin and Emily York, her daughter, did White Christmas. Nancy grew up in San Mateo, now lives in San Carlos. She was drama director at Carmont High School in Belmont for nearly 20 years. During that time, co-directed with her daughter about 5 shows. They just finished White Christmas. She also is a very talented actress. Nancy's first love. Emily, co-directing White Christmas, is a Bay Area native, been directing and teaching theater for nearly half her life. But as one of the younger members, that's not quite as long as the others. She trained at the ACT and earned her BA from Loyola Marymount. During the day, Emily is an elementary school teacher who loves every day with her students. You're very lucky tonight because unless you're a drama or a film student, you don't ever get to study how different directors are. They all have their own style, their own way of doing things, and their own way of bringing a play to fruition. And if you would like to be part of all of this, I'm looking for volunteers for Barbara's producing She Loves Me, which is later this year after Boing Boing. And we have all kinds of volunteer opportunities, so talk to me afterwards. Meanwhile, I give you these very talented ladies.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Katie, for volunteering. So we're going to start our first question with, how did you get into directing? And we'll start with Barbara Williams.
Well, I was born into it. I tell you, it's in my blood. When I was a little kid, I used to get the children on my block together and literally did shows in my backyard, and we would charge a penny for people to come and see it. Honestly, I've been directing all my life. And then, of course, directing came naturally when I took a job in teaching theater. And so that's how I started directing. And when I was directing in the school, I would do about 3 plays a year that was 39 years, so that's quite a lot of plays. And then when I retired, I moved out here and started doing it again. So, I don't direct as much now as I did in when I had the high school kids. But, you know, because you just can't out here. I worked for Coastal Rep and PSP. I was their artistic director for a while. I also was on their board for a long time. I started a theater company over in Newark that I worked with for quite a long time. And so, you know, that's how.
And Barbara, what is PSG for those who don't know?
Oh, Pacifica Spindrift Theater. Yeah, it's a wonderful little theater too. If you haven't gone there, go. They need your support too.
All right, thank you. Who would like to go next?
I can just go in order.
Okay.
And I can one-up Barbara, because my mom's water broke with me when she was in rehearsal, so.
That's definitely a lot.
I like to share that story. So I've been doing this a very long time as well. But I actually started directing in my mom's drama class, actually at Carmont High School in Belmont, and I had been doing theater myself as an actress since I was 7, 8 years old. Well, like in actual things and not just on our, you know, in front of our fireplace or something. And knew that I loved that and thought, okay, well, I can try out something different and be on the other side, and then discovered that that is where my heart lives, and that is where I can use all of my talents and all of my leadership abilities and my ability to maximize people to their best selves in a new way, which I do as a teacher as well, but you know, this gets the creative part in a big way too. So yeah, you know, watched her a lot, which was really fun, and the fact that we've gotten to work together over a number of years. She thinks that White Christmas was our last show together, but I think we have one more in us, at least. Yeah, no, it's a joy for both of us, which is really neat.
The first time I directed, I was straight out of college. It was at a private high school in San Francisco called Bridgemont. So I was just a little older than some of the seniors that I had and directing. And I was at that school for about 7 years, and then started at South San Francisco High School, directed there as well. Once the kids came along, I thought, oh gosh, I'm never gonna teach drama again. It's so much time and so much work, and I love it, but there were other plans for me. Once Emily and my son Jonathan were at Carmont, then they were looking for a drama teacher, and I said, oh my gosh, I guess I'm not done yet. So then I was at Carmont for about 20 years. And what I've loved doing and working with theater is all the different age groups I've gotten to direct. I did work with senior citizens in San Francisco one time, and that was a joy. And I work with a lot of special ed kids. I had a drama class just with emotionally disturbed kids, and that was always different every day. And then having the chance to direct with my daughter was just the best, just the best. So this was, White Christmas was the first time I directed adults, really, besides the seniors. And that was just a great, great experience. And from that, so many friendships have been made within the cast. And that is really fun as a director to see that happen too.
All right, Karen.
For me, I guess directing, it sort of evolved. I didn't set out to be a director or major in theater arts. Actually, I was an art major, and I was going to graduate. I had 4 classes left, and I switched majors. I have a strong visual sense, photography, and I had studied all of the arts as a single subject. So art, music, dance, photography, interior design, but theater really encompassed all of the arts. And I didn't realize that until my daughter, who turns 50 today, oh my God, I can't believe I have a 50-year-old daughter. Anyway, she needed a brownie badge done for drama, and I said, well, I can do that. And that's kind of how it started. I kind of helped her with her little brownie badge for theater, and then it just evolved, and I started with Park and Rec in Belmont, and then went up to Ralston Middle School, and then worked at Notre Dame for a while, and I just kind of, it evolved, and my son actually was performing at ACT, was Tiny Tim in A Christmas Carol in 1985. He's now 47. But I saw the whole process and how professional it was, and I was just, the theater bug, I guess, bit me, and I said, I need to do this. And my husband, my late husband at the time, actually said, you're kidding, right? Aren't you gonna get a degree in art? And I said, no, I'm gonna switch, and I did, and it was the best decision I ever made. And I think I love the whole visual sense of theater, but I love actually being able to step into someone else's shoes and experience what they do. And as a director, you have to be every character in that show. You have to know their background, their backstory, what motivates them, what are their fears, what are their goals, what are their obstacles. So when you are having your table talk, you really need to know that play inside and out. So I research probably a year in advance. I read the book several times, I watch the movie, I do everything I can so when we have our table talk, I'm ready. And there's always a lot of questions, but I love shaping a story. I guess at heart, I'm a storyteller, and with a strong, very strong visual sense. So theater's allowed me to do that.
Karen, you use the term table talk. What does that mean?
Oh, table talk is usually the first rehearsal, and you do a read-through of the play, and all of the, who you've cast, you sit down and you read through, and people are asking questions, and and so that's what table talk is.
Okay, thank you. All right. The next question is, what is your greatest memory of directing? A favorite memory, a wonderful place. And we're gonna do the opposite of that question too. So who would like to volunteer on that one first? Your greatest memory.
Okay. My greatest memory is also my worst.
All right.
And we're gonna have
Fair
the
enough.
same show.
Yeah, back in 2002, I chose to do the play, The Laramie Project, which is a play about the murder of Matthew Shepard. In our school district, we were having a lot of difficulties with kids who were gay or presumed to be gay being beaten up. And I felt it was important. My principal agreed with me, and we decided to do the show. I cast it. I had 20 wonderful kids in the cast, and then it was put out into the newspaper that we were going to do that show. And immediately we received, as well as the newspaper, it was the Argus over there in Newark, received a hate fax from the so-called Reverend Fred Phelps, who went around at that time picketing anyone who was going to do a play about Matthew Shepard because he hated gay people. He would literally bring his whole family and picket, and he said that he was going to come to Newark because we were going to hell because we were doing the show at Newark High School, and that we were all going to die and go to hell, and that they were going to come and picket us. My principal was prepared. I actually got a wonderful phone call from one of my former students who was police sergeant or one of the big wigs with the police department, and he said, Barbara, I got your back. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of you. And eventually they did, yeah. But about 2 weeks later, one of my cast members, Stephanie, came to me and said, Barb, kids call me that, or they call me Mama, she said, Eddie's missing. Eddie was a young man who was beginning to transgender. Eddie became Gwen Araujo. And some of you may remember that in Newark, Gwen Araujo was murdered. Gwen was murdered at a party by two of my former students. One of them was in my tech theater class, and the other one had been in plays. He was in Charlie Brown play, and we did that. Eddie was missing. I'll call her Gwen because that's what Sylvia, her mother, has known. She is legally Gwen. Gwen used to hang out in the theater, in the hallway for her friends because she was pushed into continuation school. She didn't go to school with us. She was only 17. And those kids, when they murdered her, were 24 and 25 years old. It became the Newark Project, not the Laramie Project. We were inundated by the press from literally all over the world. I had phone calls from the authors of the play. They were coming to see it. They were going to be there. Moises Kaufman and several others did come to see it. We had the Phelps people come to our opening night. They were out there picketing. They had their grandchildren in t-shirts that said, "God hates fags." They also had on t-shirts, that was in 2002 when there was a sniper in Washington, D.C. Some of you may remember about that. And they have t-shirts that said, "Thank God for the sniper because he's killing gay people." We had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people on the streets. We couldn't let the public come onto the campus of the school because if we did that, then Fred Phelps would be allowed to come onto the campus. So they had to go to the library, pay which was right by the front. They had to pay for their ticket or give their ticket and then be escorted onto the campus. Me and my actors and I all had to have backstage passes and badges. The police were all over the place. During our rehearsals, Eddie's funeral occurred. I knew him as Eddie, but Gwen's funeral occurred, and the Phelps family was there, and they said that they were going to go and picket that. So we got our angel wings ready. If you've seen the play, you know that there's angels that occur in reality. For Matthew Shepard's funeral, the angels came out and protected Matthew's family from the Phelps family. And so we did that. My kids and I, we gathered as the hearse came in. You begin to understand why this was kind of the best of times and the worst of times, because afterward, well, during the play, we became so close. The kids, their parents, we had an all night in the theater where we all spent the whole night together. I mean, the LA Times came that night and knocked on our door and said, "We want in, we want to talk to you." What's his name? The doctor on TV, you know, the psychiatrist on TV that Oprah. Yeah, he wanted us to come on his program so he could help us adjust, you know. But anyway, I don't know. It was the best of times because it changed our lives. I became a member of Not in Our Town and Not in Our Schools, which is an organization out of Oakland that is absolutely fantastic. It fights hate. I still wear every day. I wear this every day. People sometimes ask me about it. It's my MatthewShepard.com bracelet, and it says "Erase Hate." All of us learned how to really care and really make a difference one of my students ended up graduating from UCLA and went to Africa to get clean water for people. And she needed to care for people who were in need. I could go on, but I won't. Maybe afterward you can ask a question. It was the best of times, and it truly was the worst of times. We got a lot of awards. And at one point when I got an award, Gwen's mother was there, also getting an award. And I looked at her and I said, I feel so awful getting these things. And she turned and looked at me, Barbara. She said, Barbara, please don't feel awful. If you hadn't been doing that play, they would never have cared.
Thank you, Barbara. Wow, moving story.
I'll jump in next because Emily was in Laramie Project at Carlmont, maybe a couple years.
Just, I think 2 years later, which is
And
pretty amazing.
they
And it was-
were worried.
We
that
were, because of,
they were gonna have the same experience, which they didn't. And then 10 years after Emily was in it, I directed the Laramie Project and had just gotten to know Barbara, and Barbara was awesome and working with the kids, telling the stories. So that was my best directing experience too. And I just appreciated, we used your projections that you used in her show, and again, the kids came together for just such a meaningful experience, and it is life-changing being a part of that play. So it's the same, and I was also called Mama at school. There's so many similarities that we have, and I just appreciate you helping with that play tremendously.
Karen?
Oh, sure. My greatest memory, I think, actually of directing was it was writing, producing, and directing 6 short San Francisco ghost plays. It took me 2.5 years to write. And I remember my late brother, Bob, who had died of cancer before he died, he said, "Did you know Still Lake was haunted?" I said, "No." And it's just been renamed. I don't know if you know that. Yes, Blue Heron Lake. I used to go there as a child, and so I started researching, and I wrote Lady of the Lake, and that led to 5 more short plays. The Ghost of Nob Hill, which you were in. A teenage girl in turmoil flees an arranged marriage in 1876, only to return to haunt California streets 60 years later. So I took all of the ghost tours that I could. I went on so many, and cemetery tours, anything I could. And then the ghost ship of San Francisco. I don't know if you know that we have the SS City of Rio de Janeiro that's at the bottom of the bay, and I wrote a story about that, and also Lady of the Lake. Remember Me was probably one of my favorites, and that was based on a true story, or actually about Hewlett Tarr, who went to Lowell High School in San Francisco. Are there any San Francisco? Well, anyway. He was a ticket seller and a treasurer at the Kern Theater. It is still haunted. I interviewed people there. He was shot and killed during a robbery attempt in 1933. So I wrote about that. Whistler the Fog in 1934, during the construction of the Golden Gate Bridge, a worker suddenly goes missing, and his wife tirelessly looks for her husband to solve the mystery of his disappearance. And then it concluded with Time After Time. A wounded World War II soldier and his widowed nurse haunt the Presidios Letterman Hospital after their tragic stories intertwined for all eternity. These 6 short plays were connected with a red scarf, and you would see the red scarf. It needed a through line in every story, and I loved doing it. It was hard. It was a $10,000 project. I recouped 5. My son donated $2,500, which he knew how much it meant to me. So I was still, negative $2,500, but I figured it was a lifelong dream. And what I learned were these are all spirits of San Francisco who just wanted to be remembered. That we should not be afraid of ghosts or apparitions, and it took me a long time to get out of it because I was so connected to this. But anyway, that was, I think, the best and hard, and I had an actor, this is also kind of the worst, decided to quit a week before, and I said, okay. And I think as a director, I expect a conflict from every show. It's usually technical, it can be an actor, it can be something, but I'm always prepared to expect something, right? And improv, what are we gonna do now? Okay, we'll do this, we'll do that. I think theater people are the best at improv because we almost expect something to go wrong. And we fix it, we just did. So it was a challenge, it was fun, and it was a lifelong dream.
Thank you.
I have a number of favorite things, but probably the one that I'm most proud of is my mom and I did Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe at Cromwell High School 5 years ago. I don't know. Time now after COVID is just like nothing exists anymore. I know Monday through Friday because I'm a teacher, but then other than that, I know nothing. But I think it was about 5 years ago, and we chose that because Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is one of our very favorite stories, and we actually kind of mashed together a number of scripts so that we could get one that we really loved. Neither of the, we paid royalties where we were supposed to, but not really supposed to do that. But we wanted to tell the story that was right for high schoolers and right for high schoolers to tell. We loved the source material, and we did it on our main stage, which is this big, beautiful, giant theater, and so we had these beautiful scenery drops, and mothers had come in and created these beautiful, like, woodland creature costumes for all of the kids, and I'm also a dancer and a choreographer, and so my mom was like, do you want to put dance in it? And I was like, absolutely, I want to put dance in it. So it wasn't really a musical, but we had these amazingly talented dancers as well that we were able to utilize dance within this magical land of Narnia that really fit, and I think created a really neat and unique theater experience for both the kids who were in it and our audiences who were able to come and be a part of this world for the night. And my mom has been just really amazing in letting me be me and giving me opportunities to just let my imagination run on stage, and she's always been very supportive in that. Ever since I was a child too, so this was just a really neat opportunity to weave in all of these different aspects that we love, and we had really fun hair and headpieces on kids, and it was a really, really magical piece of theater. So we were very proud of that. And the fact that we did it together was really fun too.
All right, I'm gonna ask the question on conflict. It seems being a director has a lot of responsibility. How have you handled conflict, and can you share a story of what you learned from handling the conflict of working with so many people, backstage, front stage, everywhere? Karen? Yeah.
Conflict, like I said earlier, I expect it. When I did Girl on the Train, it was difficult only because we were, I guess, in an endemic. We're still not in it. And we tried our best not to get sick, and we did pretty good until about a week before. And then, one cast member gets it, and you can't mandate wearing masks, so you say, can you please wear it for the greater good, and we did. And then I came down with it, and then my husband, who's sitting out there, who is also the scenic and lighting designer, came down with it. So we were in pretty bad shape. I didn't know if the Girl on the Train was gonna crash, but it didn't. I was trying to direct in bed because I had a fever for several days, and it was scary. It was really scary. But we managed, and then I had 2 tech people drop out also. So we flew in a friend from Washington, or actually from Oregon, who came in and was able to do our sound, our projections, and everything, and was an absolute godsend. In fact, we made him a Superman cape. So, I've never had to direct during an endemic. It's hard enough directing because you really do, I think it ages you just a little bit every time you do a show. I don't know if you agree with that, but it's like, really, you want me? But to do that on top of, the masks and everything, that was really, really difficult. We did it, and it all came together, and everyone pulled together, but it was just, to have it happen, I think, at dress rehearsal is hard.
Well, I will talk about lovely COVID, again, saying that that was the biggest conflict. So I still wanted these high school kids to have a theatrical experience, so we did a Zoom play, which we did
Yeah, we did.
6 characters in search of an actor, which doesn't have if you've ever seen that Pirandello play, it doesn't have a ton of blocking, so they could be in their little boxes and it still worked. And then I got to be in Karen's Murder on the Orient Express,
That we did
a
get
Zoom
a
show
Zoom
too.
show.
And you just had to be so creative with the backgrounds, if you guys have ever played with those on Zoom.
Yeah.
And but by hook or by crook, we still did theater. So that was a huge conflict.
I don't have like a specific example. I unfortunately have faced some conflict just with older actors more than anything else. I think finding or like owning my own power and respect as a younger woman, that has been frustrating, I think, for some older men especially, to see me as someone who is talented and capable, and that I am someone who can be respected in this space. Because yes, was very exciting that this last season at CRT was all female directed, but that was the first time. And as much as there are many female directors, in some ways, I still find that it's a little bit of a boys' club, and that we still have to fight a little bit, which is ridiculous, in my opinion. But yeah, it's definitely been a space that I've had to fight for space, which I didn't expect. I think because I grew up doing theater, and there are so many women doing theater, that you just don't see it as a space that like, I need to fight to have a voice here. So when I was first confronted with that, I was like, oh, this is weird for me. And I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I'm a weird gal, but, and I know that, and it's okay. But, you know, I have been doing this for the majority of my life, and so having to really stand up for myself and get the right people behind me that like, I know what I'm doing and I do this very well, yeah, created its own interesting conflicts at different points.
I've had kind of similar problems with males in the cast.
Mm-hmm.
I've also had problems with when I'm directing with males who are working on the set build, not respecting my opinions, not realizing that I taught stagecrafts and technical theater for 39 years, and that I knew what I was talking about. So the similar kinds of things. One time I literally had to, well, twice, I had to fire men from the cast, tell them they were being removed from the cast because of the way that they were basically treating me and treating others, especially the women in the cast. Yes, I look at your face and I, yes, yeah. One of them was an equity actor who thought that he knew everything and knew far better than this woman who was directing.
I'm gonna move on to the next question is, do you think men and women direct differently?
You want me to start that?
Okay, and then I'm gonna open up for questions in the audience.
I worked with a man in the high school situation, and we did direct in some ways differently, but you know, it's just method. I didn't think it was anything that was really
Gender specific.
gender specific.
Yeah, I think everybody directs differently. because she and I direct very differently ourselves, and I think that's why we've made a really lovely team. I am bad cop and she is good cop. So that's a little bit of us, but like I don't direct directly from the script a lot of times to many people's behest, because I like to be right in the moment with people and I know exactly what's happening in the scene. But I don't like the script right in front of me because, you know, the stage directions that are in the script don't always apply to our production. So I don't want people to follow those directly, and then it becomes a little bit more natural and authentic to people. The one thing that my actors know for me is talk like a person. So I say that a lot. Talk like a human. Would you sit like that? Sit like a person. Because we get this thing in our brains where it's like, I have to be an actor and I have to sound a certain way, and it's like, no, just talk like a person. So I think everybody directs differently.
To go back to your original question, no, I don't think it's a gender-based problem. No, I think it's just your own way of interpreting the script, working with actors. Like for White Christmas, we really worked the acting, which we felt was really important. Many times with musicals, it's really focused on the singing and the dancing and choreography, but the acting is kind of, well, it's fine, they're doing fine. But no, we drilled them. And we had a character building night, which people in musicals said, we've never done that before. And it was really fun and they had a good time. So I think, but every director has their own style.
So what is a character building like?
We made them flesh out their backstories. What they're,
Which can be totally made up. So
Yeah.
if they don't have a lot of those details, they come up with them, which is fun.
it made sense to them, and then how the relationships between the characters were formed, and that deepened that. Then on stage you could see more because we had done that.
Karen, do you want to answer that one too?
Personally, I haven't observed that many male directors. When I was on stage as an actor in college, it was my professor / director. So I was in a couple of shows and, I didn't really notice any difference because I wasn't an actor, I was a director. So I came in, I'm always prepared, but my approach as a director is to listen, to be fair, and to be a filter. Meaning I will listen to people's ideas, and if we can use them, great. I'm not attached to them, I don't have this ego, it's gotta be my way or the highway. But the bottom line is the ideas really need to filter through me. And if we can use them, great, but I need to make the final call because I've been hired to direct and make those artistic choices based on my decision or actually vision. Otherwise it becomes a hodgepodge of ideas, and you can see that on stage. It's like what, and it's really wonderful to be able to be married to Dutch, my scenic designer. And so we can talk at great length with whatever show I've done, from Misery to Holes to Death Trap, whatever I've done, we're able to talk about it at great length, for weeks before, so, yeah.
Alright, thanks. I think we have a lot of people that have some questions and would like to open up the opportunity for the audience to ask questions of our director panel. Yes, do you want the microphone?
No, it's just,
Okay.
if you directed at other locations, how does our Coastal Rep Theater fit in with other ones? Are we unique? We think we're special, of course, but anything else that you've noticed that might be different here?
Well, I've directed at Coastal Rep for about 20 years now, 19 years, I guess. And I find them in an absolutely wonderful place, very helpful, especially now. In the beginning, it was a little less helpful, and thank God for Katie Murdock, who helped me. Honestly, I give her credit because I was a new director, and they, at that time, didn't even have producers, and the stage managers didn't know what was going on much of the time, and so I was able, with Katie, to flesh out and get my whole crew that was in staff that was going to be working on the show. because she knew the people there and had been working there so long herself. And I really thank you, Katie, for that, always.
Can I add?
Sure,
Yeah. I did work at Hill Barn Theater for 10 years. I taught in the conservatory program and directed, I think, 4 or 5 main stage shows. And the only difference was they had an artistic director who was there, who sat in on many rehearsals, who happened to, would guide you, which was great. I found it really great. So from that point of view, that's what I found that was a little bit different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I came in first as I don't even know what I was on Fantastics when I first worked at CRT. But I kind of worked my way up to directing, and I felt like a member of the family the first time that I worked at CRT, and I just really felt seen and welcomed, and I think that's why we've gotten so good at crafting these really magical friendships, and it really is neat to have seen what came out of White Christmas, because it really is, and I am a part of that friend group, so I feel very grateful for it. But yeah, I always tell people that theater on the coast, and especially CRT, it's different and it feels different, because we do great shows, and we do great shows all over the Bay Area, but it feels different off stage too. And we don't like people with big egos, and we don't like drama queens, and it's like, put that on stage and that's all fine and good, but let's be good humans to each other off stage, and I really feel that people keep that up, and that's what really makes a difference. It makes it feel different.
I wanted to ask a follow-up question. You talked about artistic director, producer, and I learned from the dinner that I had with Barbara and Nancy about the stage manager. Could you kind of define some of the key players in putting on a drama? What's the difference between the producer, the director, and the stage manager?
That's a really tough question. The stage manager works directly with the director through all the rehearsal process, is the right arm, takes all the notes, everything the director tells the cast, the stage manager should be aware of that. When the show goes on, it's the stage manager's show. The director relinquishes the show to the stage manager. The stage manager runs it for the rest of the run. And on Broadway, that could be years. For us, it's 3 or 4 weeks. But it becomes the stage manager's show. The producer does everything except direct the actors. The producer really should be there, available as much as possible to help to make sure that everything is going. That the producer deals with everything from the budget, and all. The producer does not cast the show, the director casts the show. But, because that's working with the actors. Does that help a little?
Well, Karen, you said artistic director, so what would that be? That's like
Right, they generally pick the season.
the whole season,
The whole
looking at the
season.
artistic
Right,
direction.
yeah, and they, that's what they do.
A lot of times an artistic director also has a big hand in picking the directors of the shows and people who are working more on the artistic side of each show as well. It kind of depends on the artistic director, but they are in big part controlling the artistic side of the theater. And the other thing about the stage manager is they are in charge of the whole crew as well. So not only are they making sure that the actors know what they're doing and the communication with them, but also the entire crew. So anybody who's running lights and sound and moving things backstage and costume changes and all of that kind of stuff. So they're kind of a Jack or Jill of all trades in the theater.
I called them.
I call my stage managers gods and goddesses.
Any questions from the audience? All right, I have another question. So one thing I also learned was that at least at Coastal Repertory Theater, you did not select the play, but you actually, somebody else has the whole design of the plays, and then you go and kind of put yourself as the director of the play that they've already chosen.
That depends on the season. So last season, I actually directed Rumors, which was the very beginning of last season, and I pitched that show the previous year. It was a Neil Simon show that I really love, and I knew that it was a show that would do really well at Coastal Rep, and I knew that I wanted to direct it as well. So in previous years, we've had a night that is open to the community, and if there's something that you're interested in directing or you just would like to see on stage, you can do a little pitch. And so sometimes the play reading committee will pick shows that have a director attached to them, or they'll pick something that would just work well for the season. And that's how we wound up with White Christmas. There wasn't a director attached to it, and I was like, hey, let's get the dream team back together. And she's like, okay, fine. And she's so glad that we did that. We had the best time. And that's how we got attached to White Christmas, was we expressed interest in that. Did you pitch Bright Star?
Yes, I pitched Bright Star in 2019. I had seen the tour of the show, and in 2017 and went, oh my God, I want to direct this show, it's so fantastic. And in 2019 it became available for amateurs to produce, and I pitched the show and it was selected, and they selected me to direct it in 2020.
Joke's on you.
So naturally I thought, oh, there goes that. Well, in 2021 I had a small stroke, and then I thought, well, there, that goes that. I'm never gonna make it back. I have, look at me. And then in last year, we're in the new year now, it was 2022, they made the decision to do the show again, and they asked me to direct it. I was so honored. I didn't even think a minute. I just went, yes. I got the email and just, Barbara, would you direct the show? I went, yes, I want to direct that show. That show is like one of my second favorites I've ever directed, one of the most wonderful experiences I've ever had with a cast and crew and the whole thing. It was absolutely heavenly, heavenly. Do you know the term kismet? It was kind of like everything came together. Our cast came together like that. They loved each other. They supported each other. It was, and that we had a problem with COVID. We had to postpone, cancel a whole weekend because 9 of us got COVID. And when my lead men started getting COVID, and there just weren't enough in the cast to cover the parts, so we had to cancel. But when we came back that last weekend, it was like opening night all over again. It was fantastic.
It was great.
Yeah. Thank you.
And Karen, you want to say how you got connected with Girl on the Train?
Yeah, before I pitched Girl on the Train, I pitched Murder on the Orient Express, and it didn't go. And I said, okay, so I kind of flipped and I said, well, I wonder, I was going, Gone Girl, whatever, I was going through movies that I enjoyed. And so I looked and I researched and I said, oh, there is The Girl on the Train, there is a script. It was a fairly new play, came out in 2019, primarily performed in the UK, with only a handful of productions in the United States. And I said, okay, so we were able to do it that way, but I love psychological thrillers. I love, it's always a challenge to me to try to produce, or rather to direct these, but that's what I did. And I was happy that they accepted it, because I was like, uh-oh, it has alcoholism and everything else. But however, it was really a journey, a woman's journey back to self-worth. So, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, what's the difference between directing a musical and a drama?
Oh boy. So much, yeah. I feel, having done both, having done Secret Garden, which was amazing. I mean, everybody just came out. It was all the right people that showed up. It's just a lot of rehearsal. It's a lot, a drama. I prefer dramas. They're easier. Musical theater is just harder in so many regards. It's just, more rehearsal time. That's just my opinion.
And there are a lot more players, so you have the musical director and
Yes,
the choreographer
yes.
and the director, and so there's 4 of you kind of working together as a collaboration, which can be wonderful or not so wonderful depending on the mix of people, but definitely a group effort. And as I alluded to the acting part, as the acting directors, you don't have as much to do, so we took the time though and really worked with the acting. Oh, yeah.
Anyone want to add to that about the differences between directing drama versus musical theater?
I have to totally agree. Musical theater is more difficult because it involves working with a lot more people. Although I love it. I really enjoy that.
You talked about Laramie Project. I really felt that the production CRT of the Angels was powerful. And I had read the play in a theater class that I took, but I just wondered if we'd ever get to see the second part. I know it's long.
That's a great question. That was actually the first show that I directed at Coastal Rep, which was joke was on me, because I was planning on pitching Rumors. I was like, I'm gonna start off easy with a comedy. And then the universe was like, ha ha, because our director dropped out. And so then
You were the stage
I
manager.
was the stage manager with directing experience, so it wasn't like they were just pushing somebody up. So thank you, I appreciate that very much. I think there's a desire to do it, so maybe we will get to. It's a heavy, heavy piece, the second part. Because the first part is a heavy, heavy piece also, and the second part is even weirder and heavier. So hopefully, I'd like that too.
Over time.
Yeah, I'd like that too. But I'm glad that there's a desire. Thank
Well,
you.
it was very powerful, and I know how complex it is, so.
And thank you, I was the angel, so.
I'm sorry, are you talking Angels in America? That's good.
What's the next play you would like to direct? Or what's the play you've always wanted to direct, and you're hoping to get to direct?
There's a little 2-person play called Bakersfield Mist. And it takes place in Bakersfield, California, and there are only 2 characters in it. One of them is a little old lady who is retired and lives in a trailer park, and she has found a painting in a junk shop that she believes to be a Jackson Pollock. Jackson Pollock's first drip painting was called Lavender Mist. That's where the title comes from, Bakersfield Mist. And she persuades the museum in New York, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, to send an expert to her to look at this painting. And it is the most magnificent 2-person play I have ever seen. And I have the perfect people for it. I don't know if you know Debbie Durst. Debbie, I had literally cast it, and we were going to do it. And Debbie was going to be that little old lady. And it just, COVID happened, and then we were told, well, do it by Zoom, and we went, no, we don't want to do this play by Zoom. So that play is one I'd really love to do.
What a great question. The very top of my list is a musical actually called Come From Away.
Yes,
Which I love so very, very much, and I'm glad that other people love it as much as I do.
I'm sitting here thinking they have to do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't think it's available yet. And I actually just moved to Boulder Creek, so I would come to Half Moon Bay to do Come From Away. But I moved a little far away to the woods and the redwoods, and it's magical, and I'm very happy. But that show is absolutely at the top of my list. If you haven't seen it, I think it's on Disney Plus. There's a really good recording of it, and it's a really, really amazing musical. So I'm glad there's desire, so fabulous.
Will you give that title again, please?
Come From Away.
That one down.
Come From Away is about the time when they downed all the planes because of the problem with the plane 9/11.
I remember that.
Right, and these planes were downed in Nova Scotia.
Newfoundland.
Newfoundland, that's right. It's a fantastic show, I agree with her.
Little tiny place with a great big air.
Do you guys wanna answer that question?
Sure. My husband and I saw yesterday, after trying to get to Tan Fran Mall, if you ever been there, oh my gosh, trying to get to the theater there, we saw Freud's last session. Excellent, excellent. Really, really enjoyed it with Anthony Hopkins and is it Matthew Good? I think he might have been in The Crown. Anyway, it was excellent. He was also in The Offer. But I enjoyed it, and I said, this feels like a play. You know when you go to a movie and you go, feels like a play to me, and I looked it up, yeah, it is a play. So it was just fascinating because they debate God and religion, and I thought it might be an interesting topic.
What's at the top of your list acting-wise then?
We're planning a
Yeah,
whole season
Nancy,
here, ladies.
since you're an actor, what would you like to act in?
She's not gonna list something for directing. She's not.
Probably, I'd love to do August Osage County.
Yes,
That was done.
Which I would also like to direct, so that would be fun.
I actually pitched that, and they did.
I think that we're gonna wrap it because library closes at 8. Thank you so much to our panelists.